Welcome back to my channel, Psychology with Dipali. Hello, everyone.
Today, we are going to talk about the fifth psychometric theory of intelligence, which is Guilford's structure of intellect model. It is also called the SOI model of intelligence. So let us know a little more about who Dr. Guilford was. Dr. Jp Guilford, or Joy Paul Guilford, entered the US Army as a lieutenant colonel and served as the director of Psychological Research Unit at an Army air base where he worked on the selection and ranking of air crew trainees. So early on in his career, he was involved in the selection process of people who were being assessed how fit they were to be recruited into the air crew. Later on, he continued to work in the field of intelligence testing and creativity testing, and he designed numerous tests that measured creative thinking. And in this endeavor, he was supported by his wife, Ruth A. Guilford, who was also a psychologist and who collaborated in his research. He was also an accomplished pianist, so he was a multifaceted personality who has done immense work in the field of intellectual and creativity testing. So now we will know about the theory that he gave. Now, to know a little more about the background of his theory, he collected data from various intellectual assessments which were done at that point of time. And he collected data from school and college examinations and even from the experiences of people, of common people. And then he formulated a comprehensive theory and a concept of intelligence, which consisted of many factors. Now, he specifically used the word intellect, not the word intelligence, to avoid confusion with other concepts and other theories of intelligence which were prevalent around that point of time. So he developed a model of intelligence using factor analysis. And there are three basic parameters or dimensions along which any intellectual activity takes place according to Guilford. So the first dimension is operations. Operations is the process of thinking. That is, how do we think, or what are the intellectual processes that we use to perform any intellectual activity. Second is contents, the terms in which we think, that is, on what is this thinking or process of thinking be conducted upon. Is it on words? Is it on symbols? And so on and so forth. The third is products. Products is the form of the ideas that we come up with. Are they coming up in units or classes or other categories? So each of these three dimensions has many sub-dimensions or subcategories, as we shall see now. So under operations, you have cognition, memory recording, memory retention, divergent production, convergent production, and evaluation. Earlier, he only described 5 such abilities under operations, where memory was a single ability, but later on, he split it into 2 different and distinct abilities. So, evaluation is the first type of operation that we will talk about now. So, it includes the ability to assess a certain situation appropriately and then taking the right decision. So, when we are making a judgment about a particular topic, let us say we have various kinds of information coming in, and we have to make a judgment as to which information or which items in all the information that has come to us are identical, which information or which item is better than the other, which qualities are shared by various items. So when we make judgments like that, we are evaluating. So the first operation is evaluation. The second operation is convergent production. This is basically logical thinking, the ability to solve problems that have one correct answer or single correct answer, and they follow a set of rules. So all kinds of logical thinking, all kinds of problem solving, whether it's mathematical problem solving or any other kind of abstract problem solving, involves this ability of convergent production. The third ability is divergent production. This is the ability to solve problems in a creative manner. So this includes all our creativity. So the ability to divergently produce visual units. Let us say somebody asks us, list down as many images as possible which you can think of, which includes the form of a circle or the shape of a circle. Now we can think of 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, or maybe even 100 different objects which include the shape of a circle. So the more different and the more varied our answers, it will be assumed the more creative that we are. So the second ability or the third ability is convergent as well as divergent production. Then the fourth is memory recording. Here we are talking about the proficiency in integrating and encoding the information. So whatever information we receive through our sensory modalities, how do we encode it or convert it into a manner so that it stays in our brain or in our recording capacity, and how do we then encode that information so that we can use it later. So that is the process of memory recording. Then we have memory retention. Memory retention basically is the ability to recollect facts or to remember the facts or the information, and the ability to recognize things or events. So there are two different things here. One is recall, where we remember whatever we have learned earlier. And there is recognition, where we might be provided with certain stimuli and we have to recognize which of the stimuli we have seen earlier. So this is similar to your multiple choice questions, where you're given an option of A, B, C, and D. So you don't have to recall the entire information. You just have to recognize which of those options A, B, C, and D is the correct one, and therefore choose the correct option. Then coming to the sixth ability under operations, it is cognition. Basically, cognition includes everything like your understanding, your comprehension, your discovery of facts, and becoming aware of the information. So it is like an overall global ability. And all these six abilities which come under operations are involved in the various ways in which we think. And what we do, therefore, after that is how do we think on the various contents that we have. So contents is the nature of materials or information on which intellectual operations are performed. So when we are doing all those intellectual operations of evaluation or memory recording or cognition, divergent production, convergent production, all of that is done upon certain matter, on certain contents. And these contents are of various types. It could be visual, it could be auditory, it could be symbolic, it could be semantic, and it could be behavioral. So we will do each one in detail. So figural ability is just basically the ability to perceive concrete material through the senses. So we have figural visual, which is the first type of content. Here the visual information is observed by a sense of sight, and this includes all the kinds of information coming in through the visual sense, like charts, images, videos. So whenever we are doing any kind of operation process on this kind of content, then we are going to process this information in a particular way. Second, figural auditory, where the auditory information is picked up by a sense of hearing. And this includes all kinds of auditory stimuli like music, narrations, and other audio elements. So whenever we are performing any kind of mental operation, all the six operations that we just talked about on auditory stimuli, then that particular auditory content is going to be processed accordingly. The third content is symbolic. That is material in the form of symbols or signs, which generally convey some meaning. Let's say letters, alphabets, numbers. These symbols are essential for representing information in abstract form. So even whether it's a mathematical problem where we are using numbers to represent certain concepts, or we are using the letters of the alphabet to explain certain concepts, that is symbolic content. Then coming to semantic content, basically material in the form of verbal meaning or ideas, like words. So words or sentences, whenever there is any kind of semantic content, it allows us to process and understand the meaning behind the language and the concept. So whenever we are processing anything for meaning, we are basically processing the semantic content. Then the behavioral content. This is information about others. Let us say the mental states of others, the attitudes of others, needs and behaviors of other people whom we are observing. So this is also a kind of a social intelligence, where it helps us to comprehend or understand and communicate with people and understand basically what a person is feeling or what the person's attitude or behavior towards a particular thing is. So these are the contents. Now we come to the last dimension or the third dimension, which is the products. Now, products refer to the form in which the information is processed by the respondent. So there are six different types of products, six different forms in which we process the information. For example, we have units, classes, systems, relations, transformations, and implications. We will do each one in detail. So the first is units. So units are discrete pieces of information. So single pieces of information, it refers to the ability basically to perceive units in a content area. So any kind of content area, we mentioned 5 different content areas. In any of the content areas, when we're able to see single entities, then that is units. So this might be symbolic units such as words, it could be visual units such as shapes, or it could be behavioral units such as facial expressions. Then we have classes. Now, classes are groups of units. So, whenever more than one unit is combined to give us a particular kind of information which we need to process, that is called classes. So, classes are groups of units that have characteristics in common. For example, when we group ideas according to certain similarity or according to their meanings, then that is called a class. Let us say, for example, if we are observing, if we take behavioral content where we are observing the facial expressions of a person who is speaking with us, we will observe their eye contact, we will observe their maybe mouth region to see what they are saying, how they are saying, whether they are smiling, and so many other subtle facial expressions. When we combine all of this together, based on certain experience maybe we have of the person even previously, we may be able to detect what is the emotional state of this person. So we have grouped all the units of different facial expressions that we have observed, and now we are grouping it together to form a class or a category where we now able to categorize which emotional state this person is undergoing. Fourth one is relations. Here, this helps us to comprehend the interrelationship which exists between various things. So, for example, groups of units which are linked together. It could be linked together in any way, or they are opposites to each other, or they are correlated to each other, or they are parallel to each other, or they have information in series. So, whenever any kind of concepts are related to each other in any way, or they are, let's say, opposites to each other. For example, in English, if we take two different words, hot and cold. Now, these two words are related to each other, but the nature of relationship is that they are opposites or antonyms of each other. So, when we talk of synonyms or antonyms, they could be related to each other in any particular way. Then we have systems. Systems are made up of multiple relations that are interconnected to form structures or pathways. So, for example, if I talk of synonyms or antonyms, or if I talk of, let's say, how we construct a sentence, it will have a subject, it will have a verb, it might have an adjective or even an adverb. So there is a particular grammatical rule or structure which will tell us how do we form a sentence, which comes first, which comes after that. So when we have these grammatical rules, it is made up of many different interrelations among many different groups and classes and many different units. And therefore, it is a complete grammatical system. So systems, therefore, are the interconnected relations, which are multiple relations, which are then forming a formal structure or pathway. Then we have the fifth product, which is transformations. Transformation in knowledge includes shifts or modifications in the viewpoint or any kind of transition or any kind of alteration in knowledge. It is the ability to understand any change in information, let's say rotation of visual figures or jokes in the semantic area. Many of you might have done certain tests where you might be shown a 3D figure and you may be asked that if this figure is rotated to the left twice, how will it appear? And you're given different options. So now here you are supposed to modify or process the image which is there in front of you in the paper on the test that you're doing, and then think visually and spatially in your spatial information and spatial ability, how will this particular image look when I mentally try to rotate it twice to the left. So therefore, any kind of modification of the information that we are receiving, any kind of transformation, any kind of alteration is what we do to certain kinds of content, then this is transformation. Implications is the next ability which comes under the products, which is the ability to see the implied meanings, which is implication. That is something which is not directly expressed, but we can understand it from whatever information is there with us. So, given a set of information, one might expect certain other information also to be true. So implications basically include all the expectations we have that if this particular set of statements are true, then the next set of statements also which are connected to it should be true. Or conclusions that we make or outcomes that we draw from certain factual matter or assumptions that we make of knowledge which is based on existing information. So for example, if we say A is equal to B and B is equal to C, we definitely can imply that A is equal to C because it is implied in the manner of the equation. So therefore, any kind of conclusion that we draw from the existing information, that is the ability of implication. So now, since this classification, which he modified many times, includes 6 into 5 into 6 categories, 6 of operations, 5 of contents, and 6 of products. Therefore, the entire model, that is the structure of intellect model, has 180 cells. Each cell is expected to have at least one factor or one ability. It may have more than one factor or ability also. And each factor is described in terms of all the three dimensions. Now, we will talk of certain examples to know exactly how do we identify which is the operation, which is the content, and which is the product in any particular intellectual task. So if we assume that a subject is given a long list of unrelated words to learn, and he is asked to recall the words at a later time. Now here the operation that he is performing is memory. The content of this test, which he's doing, is semantic because it is basically using certain symbols, which also are conveying a certain meaning. And the product is what he is recalling. Now, how is he recalling? He is recalling it in as a list of words. So basically, the product is units here. He is recalling single units or single words, and he's going to keep on recalling till he is able to get all the words correct. Another example, assuming that a subject is asked to rearrange four-letter combinations. So these are anagrams. Anagrams are basically jumbled words and you have to unjumble them to create the correct word. So the example is PANLCEIVEMOC. Now these are the anagrams. These are jumbled up words. And if the person unjumbles it correctly, then it should form familiar words like plan, wise, and come. Now, the operation that the person is performing here is cognition because it requires the recognition of the information in a disguised form because it is not directly given the information. The content is symbolic since we are using, the test is using symbols, that is letters. And the product is a word or a unit of response. So if you see the theory that Guilford has given, it is a very comprehensive theory which basically covers a variety of abilities, and basically he's talking about 180 abilities. So do share, like, and subscribe to my channel Psychology with Dipali. You can also follow me on Instagram. And till I bring the next video for you, that's all from my end. See you very soon.